Hello, and welcome to our show, Conversations with Lady T, where we bring guests on our show to talk about issues and topics that matter. Get your China teacup and enjoy the show. Today's topic is diversity, and it comes at a time that is so needed because of all the things that are going on in the community with police officers killing white folks, and it's just really a horrible thing. So I have this incredible lady here, Elizabeth Williams Riley. She is the CEO and president of the American Conference on Diversity. She's awesome, and I heard her about a year or two ago.
Okay.
You were at the Princeton Chamber event, I think, at one of the hotels. Was it a year or 2 years?
It's been 2 years, actually, at the Hyatt. Yeah, you're right.
So I spoke with you very briefly. You were rushing out, and I just thought that you were so amazing. So when I saw you on LinkedIn, I said, you know what, I'd love to bring you on the show.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, it comes at such a time. So, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
I think one of the most important things for us all to realize is that because we make up this society and because we are responsible, we have the power to change.
Right.
And I think we have to go deeper within. So when you say, where do we go from here? We go deep and we go within ourselves and we try to understand and be more empathetic to those that are in pain, to those who have real life experiences, and for those who it may not be their reality, but it's someone else's.
Right.
And to give people the benefit of the doubt. And so to me, when we talk about diversity, it's our greatest gift. We don't have to work at that.
Right. We shouldn't have to work at that.
We don't have to work at that at all. When we're born into this world, it is the gift that we get.
But why does it seem like so many people, it's like a hard work?
I think that what happens is people are misunderstood. When we create dynamics in which I have to be greater, you are less than, I want more power, or we can't share things because if I share with you, I'm losing something, then that creates the tension. If we come into this knowing that this is a space we share, we all can contribute, the richness and how much we put in, I think that is where it becomes complicated. And so because we have a legacy and a history, you never know how much your past will affect your future until it shows up in your present.
That's so true. Perfectly said.
So, that's one of the quotes that I live by, and I pay attention to that.
Right.
And so if we don't acknowledge that, and we don't acknowledge how important that is, and we all have our stories. The greatest gift that we have to share with others is our stories. And so as we live life, our stories are evidence of our existence. So it's just one of those things where we have to learn how to treasure it more and not use it as a place of conflict. Not all conflict exists because of our differences.
That's so
Some
true.
people have ego problems, personality issues, and other things, but it's not always because of our culture or our ethnicity or who we are in that sense.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, ego has a lot to do with it.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's prejudice, not just with whites not liking blacks, but even within our own culture, So I think, like you said, egos. But I think one other thing that I've been saying to people is if we learn about each other's culture, that's huge. Because a lot of times, again, fear. If you don't know anything about that culture, you're either going to fear them, you may not like them because they may do things a little different from your culture, and that's where a lot of things spark from. And so I think when people can take the time and just sit down, have a conversation, that's so critical. So I know that you work with a lot of private and local organizations. And so just tell us, how do you try to implement diversity for them?
One of the things that what I do, and I've made a lifelong commitment to doing this, is try to provide experiential learning. Where people have opportunities to be self-reflective. That it's not me going in and teaching you and giving you all the solutions, and if someone says this, then you say that. Because it's not that kind of formula in which we have to interact. It's humanity. And so, it's living. It's humanity. It's a way of being. Yes. It's not a textbook learning situation. And so because we experience things and we have to learn through our experience. We learn more through our experiences than what we do in terms of what we read and see. So it's very important for us to do that when we have people that we're trying to get to understand these issues. Right. Understanding that we're born into a world where we're set up to have biases. Right. And we're set up to have certain types of prejudices. But we don't have to act on them. Yes. We can behave differently. We can acknowledge that we have these things, but don't create barriers or create limitations for others. Right. So if we are able to do that and manage that and understand, because acknowledging that we have it is one thing, but we also have to understand when we have systemic and institutional bias and prejudices. Of course. And so that is a much harder thing to change because of laws and infrastructure and those that enforce the law. But when it comes on an individual basis, it's better to understand who you are, understand where your own personal biases lie, and then begin to operate and have a life that doesn't allow you to fall into that trap. Right. And continue and pay bias and bigotry forward. We want to pay kindness forward, right? Right, yeah, for sure. Of all things, but not that. So I think that's very important. And when we talk about what the legacy of diversity and inclusion is, we make sure that we talk about definitions and how people define things so that we can be clearer. Right, because when we be clear. If we understand, clarity is liberating. Yes. and sometimes confusion adds to the oppression. Right. Right. So really providing that clarity and giving people frameworks in which we define things and how we define things. History is important. It is. It is so very important. And so what also is important to history is our living history. Right. So when you look at history and you look at events, you have to place yourself within that realm. If you weren't born during that time, what did you learn about that time? And if there's a void, what was filled? Right. With, if you have voids in your life and you don't fill them with anything, then people will put whatever they want to in that void. Yes. And so it's important that in our opportunities to talk about diversity and inclusion, we don't leave voids, that we fill those voids with respect, with dignity, with care, with empathy, and with understanding. Right. So that really is how we approach the work. And it's not the traditional checkbox that, okay, we talked about this, and I learned about Black folks, or I learned about Asian people, and I know someone that's Hindu, or my one friend. It's not that. It's really understanding that no matter where you are, you can be an ally. And what that means is you can advocate for someone even when they're not present. Right. Yeah. You don't have to call their name. You don't have to say I have one or two, but you can advocate and let people know that be respectful. Right. Even when they're not present. Right. And so that's really important too. And so it's also having the time to talk with people about what makes the difference. Right. So what do you do differently? We do a lot of action planning, getting people to map out their trail and kind of say, who in my sphere of influence can help me and support me? We can't do it alone. Right, no, not at all. We cannot do it alone. And so workplaces trying to create environments that cultivate that is very important. When you can cultivate diversity and can cultivate inclusion, you have higher levels of productivity. It's been tested, tried, and true. Oh, yeah, for sure. And so, your team sells better. You have a larger market you can talk to. So everything, there's no downside to it unless you create it. Of course. And there's always going to be those that are going to fight it. Yes. So it's trying to, I don't know, you got to weed them out somehow. You got to weed them out. Well, not even weed them out. They have to take responsibility and join in. But then some people just, people have to, what I mean? There's people, I've been doing this for a long time. And there are some people who walk in the trainings that I have, and they walk in one way, but they walk out differently because they have to realize their responsibility. Right. When people talk about diversity and inclusion, we're not talking about just African American women. Right, of course not. There's a greater calling and a higher calling for everyone to participate. White folks have to participate. Asian folks have to participate. We have to bring in our Native Americans into the conversation. We have to bring in Japanese. We have to bring in everyone that exists in this place and share this same space. Yes. They are entitled to have the same respect and dignity. And they deserve that. Yes. And we cannot let one individual, two individuals, a group of individuals speak for the multitude.
Exactly.
Because it's more than that.
Right.
And we really have to be mindful of that. And it's easy to say, if I meet someone like this or if I have a bad experience, then the next time I'm sure it'll be that way as well.
Yes.
Because of fear. You mentioned fear.
Right.
Fear will do that.
Fear definitely will
Fear
do
will
that.
do that. And guilt will do that. Because guilt comes from two places.
Yeah.
Either you did something wrong or you didn't do something when you know you could have.
Right, exactly.
And so it's like, where are you operating? What's your motive? And I think that's a part of how this conversation has to take place. Right. People have to understand, what can I do? What role do I play? If I am a receptionist and I work for a construction site, what does diversity matter to me? Right. It matters that you greet everyone with the same dignity, from hello to goodbye. They have to respect you. You have to respect them. It matters.
Right, it does.
It matters.
Yeah.
And so we just have to remember that no matter where we sit in the world, and no matter what job we have, dignity and respect for all of that, it really does matter. It's very important.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I feel like if people would just sit and have that conversation more.
Yes.
You know, when they're at lunch, don't just isolate yourself to one group. Sit and chat with other people. Learn about their culture.
It's taking risk.
Yeah. And some people are afraid of doing
I mean, think about it. When we talk about how we eat in groups and things like that, we go to what makes us comfortable.
Right.
Is comfort something wrong? There's nothing wrong with being comfortable, right? But it's comfort not to the expense that you don't broaden your horizons.
Exactly.
Don't let your comfort prohibit or limit your life experiences.
Exactly.
And so that's where it becomes really problematic if you only choose that
always. All the time.
And so, you know, we want people to be comfortable because we have to relate to each other.
Right.
That's our connector. But at the same time, we don't have to not relate to others.
Exactly.
And I think that's what's really important. Yeah. And conversations can go a long way. I mean, it's the easiest way to get people to kind of let down their guards. And sometimes it can be the most difficult.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I've had some difficult conversations.
I can imagine. Sometimes it is hard to get people to just let their hair down and just let go.
Yes,
so on that note, tea.
Oh, yes.
Tea, I'm telling you, this tea is a Long Island Strawberry Essential Green Tea. And I like to use tea in my conversations because I think tea warms your heart.
It does.
It does make you want to relax and have a conversation.
Absolutely.
So I think
and when you
this
said Long Island Strawberry, that all sounds good. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
So this, I think, is a good
in
way
many
to
cultures,
have people.
Tea is a centerpiece.
It is a centerpiece.
To meals and socializing and everything. So indeed it is.
Yes,
it is one of those things that's soothing.
Very
It's
soothing.
one of those things that also brings us together.
And I think people can talk about anything over tea.
Over tea, yes.
So
you certainly can.
Would you like? I'm going to just smell it. And then when you smell it, it's going to make you want to relax.
Oh. I heard the name and it made me want to relax.
Yeah, so I know you have been doing this for about, 20 years or so?
Yes, I have. So I started when I was 2.
I didn't know you were going to say something like that. But it's wonderful what you're doing in the community. It really is absolutely wonderful because, as we said, diversity and inclusion is so important. You know?
It has we don't have to create boundaries.
Right.
It's in schools, it's in workplaces, in our communities, whether it's community centers, our places of worship. It's everywhere. It's everywhere we go. And so, I have, personal experiences where I was devalued or my diversity wasn't appreciated. And at a very early age. And sometimes those things can make you bitter.
It can.
Or they can make you better.
Right.
You have to make a choice.
Right, you have to make the choice.
And you have to choose to be better.
Yes, and that's what I was just saying before the show is we need to start at a young age. Starting children 3-4 years old to have little conversations, just talking about kindness, talking about people, like I was saying about my anthem, I am beautiful, I love me. It's about loving who you are first.
Absolutely.
And once you can love yourself, you're going to let people treat you a certain way. Just because you are educated or just because you live in a house versus an apartment. All those things are the problems. People just don't like people because of certain things.
Yes.
And I think when we have that conversation at a young age, that's what's going to help.
Children at the age of 2 are noticing difference.
Yes.
I have I call my little niece. Her mom and I are really good friends. And it's Mimi Milena. And she at 2 is going to her parents saying, Mommy, you're white, Daddy's white, but Auntie Liz is brown, and my Nana is brown, and she's noticing that there's differences. And her mom had to say, well, you know, kids notice very early. She said, and it's okay.
Right.
So she had to tell her the difference is beautiful because we all have differences.
Yes.
But that could be taking a whole nother conversation, and this child could be given a whole message around it's not good, or that difference is important for you to know for whatever reasons. And so I think that if we're going to end racism and all these other things, we do have to start small.
Yeah, we have to start small.
Start small with our children, and start small with our small victories on our own.
Yes. Exactly.
We have to make small steps, but significant strides.
Exactly. Well said.
Small steps, but significant strides.
Yes.
And I think that what you see in the Black Lives Matter, and how people are trying to water down the emphasis around Black Lives Matter, it's important to understand why we have to say that.
Yes, no, you have to.
We have to, because the danger in one particular race having a single story around oppression so severe in this country is very dangerous.
Yeah, it's very dangerous, as you see what's going on.
So
people are getting fed up.
Exactly.
And no one is saying that. I, of course, don't think that anyone should retaliate.
Right.
Because now you're going in and you're killing officers who are innocent. They didn't do anything wrong. They may not even be prejudiced or do anything like that.
That's right.
And so that's a horrible thing to do.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure a lot of them are doing because they're fed up. And again, it's not the right way.
You know.
So we have to do something, on a whole.
You know what comes to mind is like if you tease a dog. Eventually you tease that dog enough and they get frustrated, they're going to bite.
Yeah.
And so people will react. For every situation, there's going to be some type of reaction. And unfortunately, people choose the wrong reaction.
Yes.
Violence is not the right reaction in any circumstance. Not in this circumstance, not in domestic violence, not in cases of rape or anything else.
Right, exactly.
It is not the way to respond to these things. And I think the missing element is accountability.
Right, of course.
When these things happen, people have to be held accountable for their actions. And if no one's being held accountable,
they're going to continue to do it.
That will continue. The behavior continues.
Right, it's like a child. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Children are spoiled because you let them continue to do what they're doing. So they're going to keep testing you. So the same situations is going on here.
And children love discipline. They really do. Because when they get disciplined, they're learning what's right, what's wrong, and they can be better. So they understand that, and they appreciate discipline.
Yes.
And so sometimes we're too kind not to discipline them, and they don't learn the lessons that they need to learn in life.
Not at all.
And so life lessons are important.
It's so important.
They're so important. And I think that what we're learning is that some of these lessons that we get when people are not held accountable are lessons we don't want to learn.
Yeah, and it's deadly.
It is. It really
deadly
is
as we're
deadly.
seeing, right?
And you know what is the anger? I always talk about, you can measure yards and meters, but you can't measure pain.
Yes, right.
That's the emotion you cannot measure. If I break my toe and someone else, it wasn't that bad, and I'm screaming Bloody Mary, because it's just horrible.
Exactly.
But for them, it was just, it wasn't that bad. I didn't even feel it. But pain you cannot measure. And so what we're dealing with is a legacy of pain, hurt, and disappointment.
Right.
And it keeps happening. And it keeps happening.
Right.
And we've made significant strides in terms of how we operate as a nation to value and respect. But we also still continue to hold on to some of those legacies and in different ways. Right. People are speaking out, entertainers are speaking out, and rightfully so. If you have the platform, then use it. Use it for the greater good. Right. Sometimes we have to put ourselves aside. Exactly. And I always say this when I go into my trainings and when I work with people, decrease me and increase something else that's more important.
Right.
And make sure that there's some message that I get across that's powerful and meaningful. And I make connections with folks. And I think that's important.
Right.
When we have an encounter, when I walk away, I want to know that you were present.
Yes.
I knew that you were there, and you knew that I was there. And somehow there was a difference made. That's so important.
It is important. Otherwise, what's the point?
What's the point?
What's the point?
And so be intentional about how you connect. I mean, people were in this craze of networking. You got to network. You got to network. But what does that mean if you never call a person again? If you never see them again, you never reconnect. So for me, it's like I want to make intentional connections. We have to be more intentional about caring for each other, more intentional about having these conversations. And we cannot have people saying that it's unconstitutional to mandate that people go through diversity training.
Not at all. That's what I was going to talk about next.
You can't have that.
I was going to say that next. So how do we do this? Is it something that would come from the federal government, from local? How would we implement something like that?
I think it has to happen on all levels.
Okay.
See, this is a thing you have to attack from all sides.
Right, exactly.
When you're fighting on a battlefield against injustice and bias and bigotry, you have to go from all sides. And so when you talk about movements and social justice movements, it's not just one angle.
Right.
You have people on the front line. You have people behind the scenes planning things. You have people doing strategic planning and doing creating laws and policies and practices.
We have to change
We have to
that.
do it all. But we have to do it with some type of uniformity.
Yes, right. And that's where I believe, everybody has to come together.
People have to come together. You know what I think has the greatest power to change this whole dynamic around law and policies and accountability? Lawyers. They defend the law, they prosecute the law.
That's true.
They know the law inside and out. Right. So find the loopholes, expose them, and change them.
Wow.
Lawyers have power. They're not elected officials.
Right. That makes a difference.
They can do this with other peers. A lot of associations, and there's something that sometimes we don't think about. That it doesn't take a politician. Police officers are not elected. They're hired.
Right. Exactly.
They're hired. They're not elected. No. And so we have to think about what is going on in the hiring and the development and training. Yeah. We all have to go through training.
Right. Yeah, especially when you're dealing with people and you have a gun, okay?
When you go work at McDonald's or Burger King or any mall, wherever you have a job, you're going to have an orientation and training.
Right. They just have to have a different level.
Exactly, different types of content. Right. And so diversity should be a part of all of that.
Everything,
If you're interacting with anybody other than a TV screen, diversity it has to be essential.
You're dealing with people, whether it's your coworker or it's just clients.
Exactly.
You have to.
Exactly.
But when you, like I said, when you have that gun, first, I don't even know how some of them became officers. Like, what type of, I don't understand some of these questions that they're being asked. Psychological questions, and are they not doing those? Because I know on federal level, it might be a little different than locally.
Yeah, I think people will go quick to critique what is happening in the preparation. There are some amazing law enforcement officers that choose to do their jobs for the reason of protecting and serving. Right. Because they've had experiences, because it's rooted in some kind of loyalty to their communities, to their nation. So it's deeply rooted in their passion for justice and equity. And others are doing it because it's a 9-to-5. I can make a living. I have a job. And they sometimes have a perception that if I make it through the day, you sign up for danger. You really sign up for danger. And we all know they sign up for danger because we feel that they protect us. And if we want to be protected, then we have to have them in place. But if we don't feel protected and we feel like we're being getting the short end of everything or being the victims more often than we are being the ones that have been protected of some sort, then it becomes problematic. I think that it is on an individual level. I think that some people need a little bit more understanding. People need to, I think there needs to be some more work done. Even if you come to the table with bias and prejudice, there should be something in your training, your experience that helps you deal with that.
Right.
Because nobody's perfect.
Right. No, nobody is perfect.
And if you want to choose a profession and you're committed to it, they're going through these boot camps, they physically ready. There are a lot of other things that they're getting ready. But if you want that job, then you have to be willing, and there has to be something that helps you do that job better.
Right.
And diversity should not be an afterthought.
Right.
It's not a second part. It is a part of everything that you do.
Right. But
and so that's a problem.
Right. But I still feel, though, that with what you just said, that you still have those that get that badge for a particular reason. Some people are just prejudiced. And they do that. They get these jobs so they can do certain things. We need to be able to weed out those type of people, because I don't know if training is going to help them if that's their agenda.
If someone has that agenda, the whoever is hiring needs to know how to name it.
Well, that's what
Call
I'm
a
saying.
thing a thing.
That's what
so
I'm saying.
there has to be some kind of filter in which people can identify those types of attitudes and behaviors.
Right.
And if someone is condoning it, then they need to be out of the system as well.
I'm just being mild now.
Yeah, but you can't have people condoning that type of behavior.
Right.
And like I said, you have to expose it. You have to get the loopholes out of the circumstance and make it better.
Right.
And so, there are ways to do that, and there are individuals that can do that.
Right.
And so we just have to know how far we're willing to go.
Yeah.
And we know for a fact that there are people who have no good intentions in every profession.
Right, exactly.
From Wall Street
right.
to any other place in any profession, right?
Very true.
So you have people who are dishonest in all realms, and you can't always pick them out.
Right. Yeah, some people are good at hiding that.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
true.
Maybe you should get them tea before work. Make them be a little bit more smoother.
I think so.
But it's very hard when it's such an individual thing. And people, like I said, we said, where do we go from here? We have to go deeper.
Yeah, much deeper.
We have to, as individuals, really rethink and reimagine how much better we could be if we set aside our biases.
Right.
How much better could we be if we were able to identify and name things? And some people, there are terrible consequences for exposing people.
It is, but you got to do what you got to do.
People lay their lives on the line.
Yeah.
Their careers. The young woman who just got fired for speaking out her voice. I mean,
isn't that ridiculous?
That is.
Oh
I mean,
God, like
if you want to speak out and say that you think it's wrong, you should not. The consequence for you should not be to lose your job.
Exactly.
Right.
And I had this conversation with some friends who, one of them is in law enforcement on the federal level, and I said I have a problem with officers, us, our culture, not speaking up. But some of them have families, some of them have this, some of them have that, and I know it's hard.
That's a reality.
I know it's hard, but you see, when it happens to you directly, then you want to talk.
Yeah.
And that's the problem I think that people have. It has to happen to me. It has to happen to someone that I know personally. And instead of just taking ownership and
we talk
coming
about
together.
Exactly. We talk about consequences. Consequences are stronger for certain people and less for others. Why should someone who just is speaking out against wrongness be fired, and someone who actually does the wrong thing not lose anything?
Thank you.
So obviously there's an inequity
and
a disparity in how this is being addressed, which is clearly I mean, everything that we're seeing now and technology makes it more visible.
Oh, of course.
And not that we didn't see it before, because we saw water hoses hosing people in the 60s. We saw video, we saw film. We had footage of people, standing at lynches and lynch mobs and officers with their badges there were watching. So we've seen all of that.
Yeah.
But now it's a time that we have to really be responsible. And for me, where I said my job is to make sure I'm doing everything I can through my work to do that. But not only work, I have to live the life that I talk about.
Right, of course.
And that's important. Yeah. And so I have to surround myself with people who are different because I love them and care about them. And they inform my life.
Yes.
You're just as much as a part of my life as I am a part of yours.
Exactly.
And I cherish those relationships. They are very meaningful to me. And I think that if we are to make significant strides, we have to go deep, and we have to go one person at a time.
Yeah, make this better.
So wonderful.
So appreciate
I will come back for tea anytime.
For sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Until next time. Bye-bye.